Thanks to you all. Thanks to you all.
Thank you so much.
It means a lot for me. And I want to say hello to all the panelists, Fatima, Mounia, and Sara, and Adi and Yona.
Thank you, André Azoulay.
Hi, Azul to you all. Hi.
Thank you, André. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. I am far away from my beloved Essaouira in Rabat, but I have Essaouira just behind me, the walls, looking on all of us.
The best panorama that this evening is needed.
Thank you. I will listen to you very carefully, and you give me a chance to join.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce,
André
also.
Azoulay. Yes, in a while we'll acknowledge all the professors and the panelists and people present. So we'd like to officially now start. Azoulay Flaun, hi everyone. Niknin Frah, Assugass Ambarki, Nsitim Saht Lehna, Tanmirt Bahra, Ktadam Asa Agdnag, Asgaz Amggaz, Assugass Amayno, Assugaz ighodan 2973.
Hello, everyone. This is Yona showing off some of his Tamazigh he knows, which translates to, we are very excited to celebrate Yennayer with you. We wish you health and prosperity. Thank you so much for coming.
I do cherish the fact that I speak some Tamazigh, but I still need to work on it. So allow me please to introduce Adi Gura, who will be the co-moderator with me today. Adi Gura is an MA student at the Middle East Studies Department of Ben Gurion University. She is currently doing a semester at Sciences Po Bordeaux. Her research examines the relationship between members of the Amazigh Moroccan diaspora from the Souss Massa region in southern Morocco who immigrated to France, and their connection to their country of origin, Morocco. And you can actually see Adi right here next to me. We're in the same place.
Thank you so much, Yona. I take the opportunity to wish you all a happy Yennayer. And now I will introduce Yona. So Yona Abidour, or should I say almost Dr. Yona Abidour, submitted his multidisciplinary thesis on Moroccan Jewish identities in France and Israel jointly at the Middle East Studies Department of Ben Gurion University and Centre Emile Durkheim of Sciences Po Bordeaux. Yona started an initiative called Limud Areja, which aims to provide Hebrew speakers with the necessary linguistic skills to speak Moroccan Arabic. We would like to thank the Chaim Herzog Center, the Middle East Studies Department of Ben Gurion University, and Bladna project for their partnership. We would like to express our gratitude to all individuals who made this event possible, especially our dearest professor, Dr. Orit Ouaknine-Yekutieli, and Tal Sela for assisting with the administrative tasks, and Yair Levi Ben Shushan, who is helping us right now with the technical part, as well as our distinguished speakers, Mr. André Azoulay, Orit Ouaknine-Yekutieli, Fatima Sadiqi, Mounia Mnouer, Sara Boulhaoua, and of course, the wonderful artists, Zakia Khabo and Nabil Baja, who will enchant us with their beautiful music from the High Atlas. Actually, we are exhibiting, you might see pictures right here, and we're exhibiting some of the paintings made by Zakia Khabo. You can really see behind us. And we'll introduce you to the Zakia in the artistic part of the event, which it will be later on.
I'd like now, as we do every year, to shed light on some important key terms that deserve some clarifications. Well, as some of you know, maybe others don't, we opt to define these terms that we'll be using in the course of our event. So Yennayer is the first month in the Amazigh calendar. Amazigh, also known as Berbers, are the early inhabitants of North Africa, which literally, the word Amazigh literally means free people. Amazighen is the plural of Amazigh. Tamazigh is the language spoken by the Amazigh populations and has different variations. And Tamazgha is the region in North Africa that is considered the only original homeland of the Amazigh. Since Yennayer of 2020, we've embarked upon a journey that took us from a general historical and cultural overview of the Amazigh culture, people, and language to more specific topics related to the symbolism of tattoos among the Amazigh populations. Last year, we highlighted the notion of Judeo-Amazigh memory with a focus on the Souss-Massa region in southern Morocco. The last edition brought to the table a rich discussion about the question of identity, memory, belonging, and diasporicity.
So we've had a successful partnership, notably with the New York Amazigh Film Festival, Gardien de la Mémoire, and Bladna project. We cherish the fact that our Yennayer events have been attended by hundreds of participants who join us from various countries, mainly from North Africa and the Amazigh diaspora. We're curious to know where you're joining us from this time, so please write in the chat box and we would like to see it. And this year, we continue our journey in rediscovering the rich Amazigh culture, this time through highlighting the role of women, Amazigh women, in not only preserving this cultural heritage, but also their significant contribution in the production of culture, as well see shortly with our distinguished panelists.
I see Toronto, Canada, Marrakesh, Las Canarias, Herzliya, Israel, Casablanca, Tel Aviv, New York, Rabat, Washington. This is wonderful. We're very, very excited to have you all with us here today to celebrate the Amazigh New Year. I now would like to give the floor to Mr. André Azoulay, that I'm honored that he's with us here today. His Excellency Mr. André Azoulay is the Senior Advisor to His Majesty King Mohammed VI of Morocco. Please, would love to hear a few words from you to open this event, the panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yona. Long time we didn't see each other. Long time no see, no call. But I'm so grateful to you all to give me this opportunity. You know, I have said once to Orit that, you know, I have tried to do all my best to give a chance to diversity in my country and to retake over of all what we are. And for all the reasons you probably know, I have largely focused on, let's say, Judaism and Islam, and in Morocco, Jews and the others. But, you know, as a, how to say it, as a hihi, I mean, you know, Essaouira is haha. I feel hihi. I spoke a little Amazigh in my childhood. Unfortunately, it evaporated. But even at my age, I'm always taking any opportunity to retake over of some of my, you know, legacy, this part of my legacy and my heritage. And I feel really proud and happy. I mean, to be with you this evening and to see that the Gurion University, but I know it's the Orit achievement, giving a chance to this celebration. It means a lot for me. I will listen to you all because, I mean, I will just say general things, and I think we don't have time to be general. And I will listen to you carefully, and I will try to make my knowledge after this Zoom larger and maybe giving me more chances next time to organize something in Essaouira, which will be more focused on our Amazigh legacy, Amazigh heritage, Amazigh, let's say, asset. I have, you know, I'm trying every time I have the chance to make it, to discuss it with some of my Suri's friends and co-citizens. And I will ask all of you in Morocco or far away in Beersheba to think about, having a specific event in Essaouira. We have so many festivals, we have so many fora, we have so many meetings. And by the way, in the last edition of our Atlantic Andalus Festival last November, for the first time, we have a performance, Amazigh, Jewish, Israeli, Moroccan. And it was so highly welcomed. It was beautiful. It was a premiere, and we will repeat it in the next edition. That it was part of this, let's say, inclusive and global program of the festival. But why not, if you give me a hand to think about something specific, Amazigh and Jewish in Morocco, and if possible, because also, as you have done it in the region you are working on, Orit, and many of your colleagues, to try to know a little more and to give some visibility to, this so deeply rooted Judeo-Amazigh legacy in the Haha region. It's something which is different, but I am so fascinated by the resilience of it in the region. And each time I have the opportunity to discuss it with elders or youngers in Tamanars, Mimou, and other places in the Haha province, in the Haha region, it is so rich. And it's cross-border. It's not only history, memory, legacy, it's also culture. It's also way of life. It's also cooking. It's also songs. It's also, this capillarity, which I experienced a little, as I said, in my childhood, between Jews and Amazigh in this region. So please give me a hand. Try to think about an event in Essaouira. Orit, you know what we are trying to achieve. Yona, you are aware of it. I'm sure other participants, I don't know if Dr. Mnouer has some thoughts about it, but again, I am your man if we can organize something in my place. So happy Yennayer, all the best to you all, and I will listen. Sorry to have been a bit long for this introduction and to have made more requests than a talk, but it was great to be with you.
Thank you so much, Monsieur André Azoulay. It's been an honor, and we are really looking forward for meeting you in other occasions. Now I would like to introduce our professor and the chair of the Chaim Herzog Center, Dr. Orit Ouaknine-Yekutieli, for some opening remarks. Orit is a researcher of modern Morocco and a lecturer at Ben Gurion University. She is about to publish a book about Moroccan Amazigh leader Tami El-Gilawi, and she currently writes about the Vichy period in Morocco. She researches Amazigh Jews in Israel and beyond as part of her research on Moroccan Jewry and their historiography in Morocco and in the diasporas, touching upon issues of memory, cultural production, and the relevance of these to intergroup and inter-religion relationship. Orit, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this generous introduction. Good evening, Assugass Amggaz. I'm honored to open this Zoom event celebrating Amazigh New Year 2973. His Excellency Mr. André Azoulay, Special Advisor to His Majesty King Mohammed V, Professor Fatima Sadiqi, Dr. Mounia Mnouer, Mrs. Sara Boulhaoua, Mrs. Zakia Habu, and Mr. Nabil Baja. Our friend and colleague, Professor Habiba Ben Bumlik, Professor Daniel Schroeter, Professor Bruce Medi Weizmann, who generously joined us as audience. Dear friends, I am thrilled to see the very large international audience gathered this evening to celebrate the Yennayer, dedicated to Amazigh women. This echoes a very emotional experience for me when I first arrived at Boulhaoua long time ago, almost 30 years ago, to look for memories about Jews. And I met Amazigh women looking for their old friends that left Morocco. With tears, they recalled their name, the family names, sending me as a mission back to Israel to look for them, for the lost friend, where I came back and looked for the people of Boulhaoua in some of the agricultural villages in Israel, Moshavim. And I met them in one of the Moshavim or two of the Moshavim in Otzem. Back then, almost 30 years ago, nobody talked here about the Judeo-Amazigh culture. There were Moroccans. And in that time, they were many times treated as inferior to the European Jews. When I asked them about their village, about their valley, the most beautiful valley in the world, at Boulhaoua, they were really thrilled, really excited, and they started to dance the ahwash, and they started to bring their costume for their home. They said nobody was interested in our culture. We are so happy. We wish once we could go to Morocco. And then a year ago, I went and met once again people from Boulhaoua, bringing picture from those Israeli villages, telling them, we miss you. We wish we could be with you. We wish you could visit us. And this is an Amazigh bond that we celebrate, better preserved by women. We allow ourselves to be emotional. We allow ourselves to combine between our emotions and our way of studying, thinking, or intellectual endeavors. In this celebration of renovation of tradition that links diasporas and homeland, showing respect to the previous generation, I'm looking forward to a wonderful event. But before turning to our full program, I want to express my special thanks and appreciation on behalf of Bladna and the Herzog Center to our dear, dear students, Adi Gura and Yona Abedur, almost Dr. Yona Abedur, who are wonderful students. Every teacher would be proud to have students like you. I'm so, so lucky. I want to thank our academic coordinator, Dr. Haya Bambaji Sasportas, and our administrator coordinator, Tal Sela, for their help and organization. In our forum, My Heart is in the West, My Heart is in the Maghreb, we aim to study our Amazigh Arab Muslim Jewish heritage, that is to say Moroccan past, and as part of who we are, and to remind ourselves the commitment to teaching and researching the past and transferring it to the new generations. I want to express my very deep gratitude to His Excellency, Mr. André Azoulay, who is always a source of inspiration for us, and for his support to enormous project concerning the component of the Moroccan society in Beit Dakira, in Essaouira, and in many of other places all over Morocco. I thank you for promoting the multicultural heritage, Amazigh, Arab, Hebrew, Saro-Hassani, which create a solid foundation and an example for the entire world for an option of rich and collaborative way of life. Thank you so much for your support for this evening and other initiatives. Alfen Samia Tlato Sab'in, Aig Asgass, Mnouer fulki, Tifinagh dissaht, Assugass nitgamat imaziren. Thank you.
Wow, I see that you are also showing off the Amazigh you know. I like that. I love that. Thank you so much, Orit. Thank you for your words, for your introductory remarks. We're also we have so much gratitude for your support, for your vision, and for your continuous and constant taking decisions, sometimes things that are not that are not taken for granted, but we work hard for them. So I appreciate your help. We are impatient to give the floor to our distinguished speakers, but before doing so, I'd like to kindly remind you of the format. I'm sure that by now you're already familiar with it. Please keep yourself muted throughout the session. We'll actually have time in the end, towards the end, for a Q&A, so you can write down your questions, we'll gather them, or you can, in the end, unmute yourselves and ask your questions. Now, we're extremely honored to have the keynote presentation delivered by the scholar and professor Fatima Sadiqi. Professor Sadiqi is a senior professor of linguistics and gender studies affiliated to the University of Fez. In 1998, she founded the first Moroccan Center for Studies and Research on Women. And in 2000, she founded the first graduate program on women and development. In 2018, she was elected president of the Association of Middle Eastern Studies, the first woman actually to be elected to this post from North Africa. Her main academic interests reside in the intersection between language and gender. Her books include Grammaire du Berbère, Women, Gender and Language in Morocco, Women's Activism and the Public Sphere, Local and Global Linkages, Women and Knowledge in the Mediterranean, Moroccan Feminist Discourses, and Women's Movements in the Post-Arab Spring North Africa. The list is long, but I'm sure you can find more online. Sadiqi's work has been supported by numerous prestigious awards and fellowships from Harvard University, the Woodrow Wilson Center, the Rockefeller Foundation's Bellagio Center, and Fulbright. She is currently working on the Amazigh Women's Art, which goes hand in hand with what we have in the background. Professor Sadiqi's presentation today is entitled The Amazigh Alphabet, Tifinagh, a story that continues to live. And she shared with us a wonderful abstract that allow me to share with you before I give the microphone to Professor Sadiqi. This is what Professor Sadiqi wrote. Some historians of North Africa consider Tifinagh to be the first phonetic system for writing that man created during the 2nd millennium BC and before the Phoenician alphabet. Yet, the history of Tifinagh received very little academic and institutional attention. Recent findings in archaeology, anthropology, and social sciences offer 3 scenarios for the origin of this alphabet. I will try to offer a 4th one, said Professor Sadiqi. Please, we're curious to learn about the 4th scenario.
Well, first of all, Azul, Assugass Amayno, صح لهنا إن شاء الله. Tifinagh. But before that, I would like to very warmly thank you, Yona, Orit, and Adi. I would like to give a wave to André. We are very honored to have you with us, and also Bruce and all the other friends that I couldn't recognize from the list. But anyway, I thank the audience very much. Well, I start this presentation with a paradoxical fact. On the one hand, there is consensus in linguistic, anthropological, and now archaeological studies that Tifinagh, the Amazigh alphabet, is one of the oldest alphabets, if not the oldest in human history, and that this alphabet has never been used for long periods of time, and that it has been recently meaning the 60s, revived in France, then in North Africa, more specifically in Algeria and Morocco. On the other hand, no one has asked the why question. That is, how come that an alphabet that ceased to be used for long periods of time, except maybe in short texts and on tombstones, how come it has not, so to speak, killed the soul of the language, the grammar of the language? Because in linguistics or in linguistic theory, there is this belief that when an alphabet is not used for a long time, the language dies. But Amazigh has not died. It continues to live. I am approaching this paradox as a linguist. Now, in parallel to the paradoxical story of Tifinagh, there is another paradoxical story, that of the Amazigh art of weaving, the tissage, weaving. Although there is a consensus that weaving is millennial, the why question has not been addressed from a linguistic point of view. To my knowledge, there is no attention to the linguistic roots of weaving, let alone its relationship to Tifinagh. So in an attempt to address this twin paradox and stay within the 20 minutes that Yona gave me in the email, I make the following hypothesis. There may be serious linguistic proof that Tifinagh is rooted in women's weavings. And the lack of attention to this fact may be a consequence of the historical marginalization of Amazigh women, women in general, in the linguistic canon. By the way, it is only in 2020 that the first anthology recording the contributions of women to the linguistic canon, I mean, especially the lexicon and grammar, the formal language itself, is only in 2020 that the first anthology appeared. And this anthology tells us that all over the world, women have been marginalized in the linguistic canon. This hypothesis needs explanation. This is what this presentation will attempt to do. Let's start with Tifinagh. So far as the long life of this alphabet is concerned, and as was mentioned, there are 3 scenarios about the origin of this alphabet that have been suggested. The first one is the Middle Eastern Semitic origin. The second one is a Roman origin. And the third one is the Saharan African origin. The first 2 scenarios may be qualified as non-native, whereas the third one is, in my sense, native. The scenarios, as you can easily imagine, follow or have followed a historical chronology. The first scenario explains the fact that historically, more attention was given to Hebrew or to the Hebrew and Arabic writing systems than to the other writing systems that existed or coexisted with them in the region. An open question that I am going to give here as an open question and maybe a window of research for later. Why is it reported that Amazigh was used in parallel with Punic and Latin and not with Hebrew and pre-Islamic Arabic? This needs research, but it's an important question. The second scenario roots the Amazigh writing system in the Roman occupation of Mauritania, Tingis. That's in the year 285 before Christ. This scenario is too strong because it assumes no trace before, a fact refuted by recent archaeological findings. The third scenario, mainly based on archaeology, I'm not going to cite names, there are so many, is more credible. I won't go into details here, but I will only mention that some archaeologists specializing in the history of North Africa during the prehistorical era consider that Tifinagh is the first phonetic system for writing that man created during the 2nd millennium before Christ and before the Phoenician alphabet. Okay, now the question to ask is, how was this phonetic system encoded or recorded in writing? Again, historians and archaeologists tell us that it was encoded on rocks. I will show you the first. Okay, do you see this? Okay, so let me recap. So the question is, how was this phonetic system encoded? Well, we know that it was encoded, or we are told it was encoded as rock art or rock inscriptions. Remember that. They also add, these historians and archaeologists, that most importantly, these inscriptions were also accompanied by some drawings like this one or this one, a mixture of inscriptions and what I will refer to later as epigraphy, that's images that are there. Also, did say, I'm not going through this one to save the time I wasted, that there was an evolution from the dots, and then there was some kind of lines, and there are many proofs shown that linguistically there was some kind of evolution in that. The line in the ancient Libyc alphabet was accompanied by other images, etc., etc. This is, most of it is recorded in Skunti, the archaeologist, and the huge bibliography he has there. Okay, this evolution is very important because it shows an element of continuity. And it's here that I want to take you with me there. There's an evolution, so there is continuity there. And if we look at what's happening today, it's the Tuareg are the only source we have that tell us about this ancient past and now. The link, the continuity are the Tuareg and what happened with the Tuareg. Between parentheses, I did field work with a Tuareg poet. I also listened to him sing the Tifinagh, etc. So I'm going to use him as well. But epigraphy tells us that images preceded the inscriptions. This quotation here says, les populations de l'intérieur des terres, comme aimaient à l'écrire les auteurs gréco-latins, dans ces territoires éloignés des rives méditerranéennes, ont marqué les parois de leur message écrit. Ils ont marqué les parois de leur message écrit. Ils ne faisaient que prolonger les traditions de leurs ancêtres, which means that something existed before. Leurs ancêtres qui s'y exprimaient déjà par des images figuratives et géométriques. So this is to show you that the second scenario is too strong. Images existed before. That's important. Now there is this book, but this book written by Claudine Cohen, an archaeologist. She's a French archaeologist. She wrote it in 2016. Before I go into that, I will say that in order for the images to exist, they needed some kind of context. Now, the context, it took me time to find it. And I partly found it in this book, Femmes de la Préhistoire. Femmes de la Préhistoire, where Claudine Cohen shows or mentions and discusses the fact that something existed that I didn't read elsewhere. Weaving. Women wove in antiquity. It's not something that existed after that. So I go back to my text. So in order to survive, we needed a secure place. For me, that was home, and sedentary practitioners, that were the women. Indeed, women have always been associated with mobility and women with sedentarism, even in nomadic tribes. But while both men and women wove, weaving has been associated more with women. It has thrived at the hands of women because of the Amazigh social organization. What is this social organization? Let us come closer to women, to the weavers, to the community they live in. Now, but from my point of view, I don't want to go into details that maybe other people will talk about. So women are the communicators, we know that. Women are the weavers, we know that. But what does it mean? It means that they produced designs on rugs. And on the sand, by the way, that's what my interviewer said. Women used to write on the sand if the message is secret. Gallon also talked about this. I'm not going into that. But anyway, if this line of argumentation is valid, Tifinagh is first rooted in very ancient images, that is, roughly speaking, in art. But women are recognized historically as the artists in Amazigh communities. So the twin fact that Tifinagh is an art and women are the artists has gone under the radar of history because women have historically been assigned to the private realm, and art has always escaped social and political control. Let's get closer now to the combination of art and Tifinagh. And here, my Tuareg, the Tuareg claim, the Tuareg are situated in the middle of the desert, but there is also a parallel in Zagora in Morocco there, but I'm not going into that. The Tuareg claim descent from a woman called Tinhinan. In Amazigh, Tinhinan means the woman from over there. All the Tuareg, nobles or lower class people, vassals, consider Tinhinan as their ancestor. They also talked of uterine descent from a single eponymous ancestress. This claim is materialized in the huge tomb that is still preserved in Abalessa in Tamanrasset in Algeria, and which I visited. Further, the family in Tuareg society is defined by the tent. The tent is very important, which is not only a woman's space, but is also a woman's property. Okay, it is the tent, it is in the tent that women transmitted Tifinagh to their children. This transmission is important. Tifinagh is still taught by mothers to their children, still taught in the Tuareg tribes. Now, one other parenthesis before I go on to weaving, anthropologists tell us that matrilineal is dominant among the Tuareg. I couldn't assert that. But I noticed that inheritance, including the inheritance of political power, runs through both matriline and patriline in the Tuareg. And there are many writings, this is documented. Because being constantly on the move as nomads, the Tuareg anyway did not amass substantial material property, but women are the ones who control that property. They could also divorce their husbands, etc., etc. Now back to weaving. So women wove. We know that weaving goes back to history. Even in Encyclopedia Britannica, there are some allusions to that. And there is a book which says that there is art in the alphabet. Art is important. So women performed specific tasks as a result of the sexuality-based distribution of work between men and women since antiquity. Women's weaving has up to now being approached as symbolism, spirituality, but not as linguistic expression. When linguistic expression meets art, it becomes semiotics, and we have a branch in linguistics called semiotics. Vague allusions, as I showed you, are here, vague allusions to this, and also to this, but serious theoretical work is also being done in this book on the existence of art in the alphabet. Okay. More than that, serious work is being done now with this book that I mentioned to you, Women in the History of Linguistics. This is the first anthology that tells you that women did participate in the codification of the language. And here I arrive to my conclusion. My conclusion, I want to read it while looking at this. The survival of Tifinagh as a writing system is thus due to its close semantic and semiotic relationship to women's artistic designs, triangle lines, horizontal, we find that also with goddesses, etc., which also function as women's writing and speech. In other words, the rug designs are central to the codification and stabilization of the Amazigh language. If the designs inspired rock inscriptions and epigraphy, as well as we know it, body tattooing and jewelry making, they may just as well have inspired the Tifinagh alphabet. And by so doing, they inspired the codification of the Amazigh language. If this is valid, we are in front of a unique phenomenon in linguistics, a language that started as art, as artistic writing, continued as an oral language. So we are used to oral languages acquiring the writing form, but here it's like writing, if we want to read history, as a contemporary linguist, started as artistic writing, which became orality. By the way, most languages in the anthology I showed you, because I have a chapter there, but on Arabic, most languages are consonantal, and Tifinagh also has consonants, etc., but its soul is art. That's why it couldn't keep up with long texts, etc. So the question I will end with, is this an oralization of writing? This is another idea to ponder. But in any case, I would like to end by saying that women did not only preserve art and culture, they produced linguistic knowledge. Thank you very much, and sorry about my messing with the technology.
This was fascinating, insightful, intriguing in so many different levels. I thank you so much for the points you've raised to ponder the questions that I'm sure students and researchers would love to continue the conversation. We will definitely continue the conversation in the Q&A discussion. I'm sure you all have many questions by now. Feel free to write them down in the chat box now, and we will have time towards the end for Q&A and discussion. Thank you, Professor Sadiqi.
And thank you, Yona. So I would like to introduce Dr. Mounia Mnouer. Dr. Mnouer is an indigenous Amazigh woman from the Middle Atlas. Dr. Mnouer graduated with the English degree in Moulay Ismail University in Meknes, Morocco. She traveled to the United States for graduate studies. Her graduate education is an interaction of linguistics, curriculum and instruction and ethnic studies. Dr. Mnouer founded African Communities Unite in November 2020, which is an online platform for African and African diaspora people to connect and share knowledge and have representation in topics related to education, history, art, languages, innovation, and technology. Dr. Mnouer is a lecturer in the Department of Near Eastern Studies at Princeton University. Her research pertains to cross-cultural and equity issues in indigenous education, autoethnographies that center Amazigh women, Amazigh activism on social media, and Amazigh indigenous curriculum. Her publications appear in diverse issues in higher education, faculty focus, Marayana, the International Journal of Qualitative Studies in Education, and Roger University Press. So Dr. Mounia Mnouer, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. She will today talk about from the historical to the personal, Amazigh women and their lasting footprints. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adi, for this wonderful presentation. Can everybody hear me? You know, of course, I had to go after Fatima Sadiqi, Dr. Fatima Sadiqi, which never is a good idea, but it's okay. Before I start, I would like to do some land acknowledgement. So, Richard Smgorch insdagen in Zura, Gumadal, Richard Smgorch Tasut Nsen Izrin, Tasut Dagat Tinimel. I would like to acknowledge and honor all the indigenous people in the world. I would like to also honor their past, present, and future generation. Thank you so much for having me and for the organizers to organize such an important event, which is our Yennayer. Congratulations on the 4th year of celebrating Yennayer and bringing us online from all over the world. So, Assugass, Amggaz, everyone. I am originally from the area of Zmour, which is near Khmisat. Both my parents are Amazigh, and they spoke Tamazight with us in the house from this tribe called Eid Belqasem, but I grew up in Knes. And my mother actually was the person that protected this heritage of orality because she spoke to me and my siblings in Tamazight all the time in the house, and for that I will be grateful, forever grateful to her. So, and the Yennayer festivities actually in different parts of Amazigh country, as we know, are led and organized by Amazigh women, which shows the women's integral part in Amazigh history. So the role of Amazigh women in Amazigh history is undeniably present and deserves not only recognition, but demands respect and protection. And I would like to talk in this 10-minute short time that I have, and hope I do these people that I'm going to talk about justice, although it's impossible. We need volumes about them. So I'm going to be talking about 4 Amazigh women in history who left these lasting footprints. And I'm going to finish by a brief poem that I wrote about my own grandmother, who actually also was a carpet weaver. So the women I'm going to be talking about are Queen Dihya, Yemna Aziz, and Mririda. And I'm going to finish by Nana Fatima, who is my grandmother. So these women are basically symbols, not only of figures of history, but they're symbols of resistance, leadership, creation, and decoloniality. So Queen Dihya, some of you know her, some of you don't. I didn't know about Queen Dihya until I was an adult, because that's not something that I studied in Morocco when I was going to school in history classes. So Queen Dihya comes from the Jarawa Znatiya tribe, and she led the resistance movement and withstood the invaders. She was able to reorganize the Amazigh resistance between 7th and 8th century. And unfortunately, as I said, I did not get the chance to know about her until later in my life, where I decided to pursue Amazigh studies and scholarship. She was portrayed in some histories as a sorceress, a person who is not to be trusted, but she challenged not only colonization, but also defied patriarchal beliefs. So her courage, care for her land is what drove her to basically die in the battlefield, defending her land, her indigeneity, and marking our Amazigh history, leaving an everlasting footprint for generations to come. Yemna Aziz, or Namna Azizin and Yemna Aziz, is a woman and a singer from the Atlas Mountains. She started singing at the age of 15 until the early 90s. And she was specifically specified in the art of Tamawait. Timawin, plural. So Tamawait is a word in Tamazight that means the female companion. And Tamawait is a poem that consists of 2 verses generally, sang with a high-pitched melody to express love and agony. Not many are familiar with Yemna. I discovered her music through my mother, who loves to sing. So she sang Tamawait a lot, especially that we grew up in the city. And so we missed the mountains. So she would just sing Tamawait in the middle of the building where we lived. And everybody would be wondering, what is she saying? So Yemna's themes revolved around migration, the pain of being away from home, something a lot of Amazigh in the diaspora can relate to, as we are away from our Amazigh countries. And she also spoke of love and resistance. So just like Queen Dihya, although in a different form, which is Tamawait, she resisted colonization and was the guardian of her own community. So Yemna sings in Tamawait, Zaid Ga'dil Iwhdidi. Add food to your horse that which you're traveling. Your enemies promised to kill you. So Yemna was warning a member of her tribe about the French colonizers coming to seize this person, starting with this coded language, Zaid Ga'dil Iwhdadi. Add food to your horse, meaning you have a long journey ahead of you as you attempt to escape your death. So Yemna spoke not only of that, I mean, she's a symbol of resistance and decoloniality as well, using art of Tamawait as a form, not only to sing, but also to pass on messages and make sure to defend her tribe. Yemna also spoke of loyalty. Something that reminds me as an Amazigh of my loyalty to my Amazigh country, and hence this idea of connecting the historical to the personal. It always goes back and forth. So Yemna said, "Ataymni mshdatam addayta nait, idran yu'ar'ar ghaddayta nait, ahuli dris gulli ghaddayta nait, islman." And so she basically says here, translated roughly, then when the sidra tree, which is a tree that grows in the desert, gives birth to fish, and when the ram benefits from the sheep, if these things were to become true, then it is time for us to part ways, showing that nothing could change the loyalty she has to her beloved. The sidra tree will not give birth to the fish. The ram doesn't benefit from the sheep, the shepherd benefits from the sheep. And so then in this idea is that she really, there is nothing that could stop her from this loyalty to her beloved. For me, I see these lines and contemplate with them because they tell me that nothing will disconnect me or displace me from my own land. And that's how I connect this historical to the personal. Unfortunately, not many reports and digital archives are recorded of Yemna Aziz. She did not really get a big media coverage, and she did not really get the value that she deserves as an artist, but that is something that we as Amazigh can change moving forward. And the other person I would like to talk about, that Dr. Sadiqi had written about her in one of her articles about orality, is called Mririda. That was her stage name, Mririda, who's an Amazigh female poet whose work was not recorded, unfortunately, until the late 1920s. And she expressed love during a time when women could not voice opinion about topics related to love and passion. And she brings that attention to the embodiment and how she embodies love. She also broke patriarchal barriers and carried the voice of many women and spoke of human rights. And we can see the issue of equity and legality when a man divorces a woman. And this is roughly translated. It says, "He took back my jewels. Did he ever give them me? You who once were my mother-in-law, say to your son that even his name I do not recall." So our very own Fatima Sadiqi describes these lines as, and I quote, "Mririda accepted the divorce as a regain of freedom, The fact that Mririda addresses her mother-in-law, another woman, attests to the notorious power that mother-in-law has in Moroccan culture. This is a strong woman-to-woman language. In the text, the poet speaks of the jewels given by the groom to the bride upon contracting a marriage. These jewels remain the property of the husband, who takes them back in case of divorce. Did he ever give them me? Asks the poet. It's a simple question that raises the whole issue of Moroccan women's legal rights. And I close the quote. And thank you for that, Dr. Sadiqi. So Mririda broke this narrow definition of literacy, indigenizing her narrative through oral knowledge, making indigenous knowledge a part of Amazigh history. And as a woman myself, when I think about these lines, these messages brings this historical to the personal and to the now. And I find myself in the 21st century still relating to the many inequity issues that a lot of women, specifically Amazigh women in rural areas, are still fighting against. I would like to finish my presentation by reading a poem that I wrote by my grandmother in 2020 when the world was quarantining because of COVID-19. I have never met my grandmother, and I called her Nenna, but I feel connected to her legacy. She expressed her love, strength, and independence through carpet weaving. She was a mother to 6 children, and her husband was away for a few years in the 1940s, my grandfather, conscripted by the French army to fight in the Indochina War. And here is me adding my story. A letter to Nenna, my grandmother who died the year I was born. Dear Nenna, I never met you. I never hugged you. My father did not talk about you much. I never asked much about you either, yet somehow I feel connected to you. You came to my dreams dressed in silk and pink, and we exchanged an eye smile. My father mentioned you only as his mother, but I knew I wanted to know more of you as I grew. I had to insist in quarantine 36 years later to catch a glimpse of your strength and wisdom. Through the stories of my father, he shared through the distance of the coronavirus. He fondly says, Nenna was a strong, resilient woman. I don't know if it's because he is present in the countryside, the indigenous place where both of you and he lived, but I never heard him describe anyone with such admiration. Nenna is what I call you whenever I look at your picture, sitting beautifully like a boss with your Amazigh face tattoos. I look at your picture and I feel the bond between us, Nenna. I look at your picture and it tells me a story. This woman raised her kids all by herself, while her Amazigh husband, conscripted by the French, was off fighting wars. This woman told indigenous stories to cheer her kids up, to teach them about survival in colonial Morocco. The same stories then passed on to me, but my father, do you know that? You would be so proud of your kid. You encouraged my father to go to college, and without that, I would not have the strong family that holds me, even if it meant going to another continent to pursue education. I would like to thank you. You gave me the opportunity to connect to a historical heritage I have never seen, despite the tough times of the quarantine. You embody the strong Amazigh womanhood, Nenna, and I look forward to seeing you again in my dreams, dressed in silk and pink, and we exchange an eye smile. I actually just saw Nenna in my dreams last week. So she was basically sending some Yennayer vibes to me. So I would like to end this brief conversation and say, my hope is that to continue the legacy of these women. Women are not only protectors of our Amazigh history, but as Dr. Sadiqi reminds us, they are creators of history. To me, the historical is intertwined with the personal when it comes to Amazigh women's legacy. Our role is to protect this heritage and ensure its continuity. And I see my amazighwomen through these women who have left undeniably lasting footprints in our history, in my history. Thank you. 10 minutes.
Wow, Dr. Mnouer, it was really beautiful poem, and I'm sure your Nena is really, really proud of you. We really could feel how you succeed to bring the historical to your personal vibes, and it was really fascinating. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity and for this beautiful poem as well. Now on, I would like to introduce us, Sara Boulhaoua, pardon. Sara is a Moroccan PhD researcher and a really good friend of mine. And she's a researcher at Sidi Mohammed Ben Abdallah University in Fez. She earned an MA degree in translation and cross-cultural communication in 2021, and she's currently carrying out her PhD research in the same field. Beside her academic career, Sara is passionate about leadership and community service. She's an active volunteer with national and international organizations, namely the Rishi Society of Cambridge University as a translator, ICT as a project manager, Tifinagh and Tech to Tech as co-founder. Sara will speak today about the translation and how it is connected to the Amazigh culture. Sara, please, we would like to hear some more.
Azul, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Dee and Yuna, for having me. It is a great pleasure and honor to take part in this event to celebrate Yennayer, which is a very special day for all the Amazigh in Morocco and North Africa. And I would also love to say thank you for Zakia for the amazing piece of art right behind me. And thank you so much for the efforts that you're doing to showcase and celebrate the Amazigh culture through art. So my presentation is the following. In this presentation, I will talk about the Amazigh culture and translation, specifically about the cultural translation immersion with the cultural turn, and I will discuss the loss and the loss of Amazigh culture in translation through in translation of Amazigh cinema, and I will give examples from the well-known Amazigh series Babali. Then I will tackle the significance of translating Amazigh orality in reviving and preserving the Amazigh culture. And finally, I will tackle and suggest an ethical translation approach that we as translators can adopt to safeguard the Amazigh culture and highlight it. So the cultural turn is a movement that started in the early 1970s among scholars in humanities and social sciences to make culture the focus of contemporary debates. It also describes a shift from towards meaning. In translation studies, the cultural turn is a shift from the formalist approach to translation that debated the meaning of faithfulness and equivalence to an approach that laid emphasis on the extra-textual factors such as context, history, and other cultural aspects. In its beginnings, translation was confined at the language level, so the practice of translation started with the linguistics as the predominant paradigm and the equivalence was the main issue. A number of translation scholars who dealt with translation as merely linguistic act proposed a number of strategies to deal with the issue of equivalence, such as Renai Darbonet, who came up with 7 strategies consisting of borrowing, transposition, modulation, equivalence, calque, literal translation, and adaptation. But of course, these strategies only rely on the word level. Focusing merely on the word level during the translational process usually fails to convey the meaning, as it does not take into account the cultural peculiarities and the cultural differences and other extra-linguistic or paralinguistic factors that are even more important to convey the meaning and the real essence of the source text. Before the cultural shift in translation, the focus was only on how translation is taught and studied. Now the focus moved to understanding the source and target's culture and to what extent the cultures are distant in order to adopt the most appropriate translation strategy. The culture-specific items are very important in each text to be translated, and adopting the cultural approach of translation requires a skillful translator with a thorough cultural background to understand the meaning and find the appropriate equivalence. These the culturally bound words or the culture-specific items are thought to be the most difficult to translate than the linguistic forms, as Tiwianti and Ritnomurti confirm. And I quote, culture-specific items are difficult to translate since they are related to cultural knowledge and cultural background of the given culture. Distance and differences between two different cultures determine the extent of the gain or loss that will be experienced by the culture-specific items as they are translated. Now we will move on to Bab Ali, and I will draw on some examples, and we will see if these cultural-specific items are well translated or not. Bab Ali is the most famous Amazigh Ramadan series that managed to reach a wide audience of millions of viewers, and it is the first Amazigh series to reign over the YouTube trend of Morocco for the whole month of Ramadan. This comedy series comprises of 2 seasons so far, and it is broadcasted on Amazigh TV channel. Due to the standard Arabic subtitles, Bab Ali played a major role in the exposure of Amazigh culture to a wide audience all over Morocco and beyond. However, the translational process is highly affected by the domesticating fluent tendencies which eradicate the cultural aspect of the source text and lead to assimilation. Now let's have a look of some of the examples from the series. The first example goes like, Han adurt صورت سيدوكان. Idukan here stands for Bilgha. Bilgha exists in the Arabic language and also in English. However, it is translated as hidai or shoes. Do you think this translation is faithful or actually fluent and it eradicates the source culture? For me, if you can say yes or no in the chat box below. Do you think shoes for Idukan is a decent translation? I can't see the chat box. Let me see. Okay, so most of you agree that this is not a faithful translation, and it does not demonstrate any respect for the source text. We can simply translate it as Bilgha, which is a decent translation. The second example is Raghin Skirg. Ibrin stands for couscous. We use Ibrin especially in the Souss-Massa region, and also the actors and the context of the series is in Souss. So Ibrin stands for couscous, while it is translated as smid, or what translates in English as semolina. This is also a very important culture-specific item that should be translated as couscous, because couscous is a Moroccan dish that is well known, and it should be simply translated as couscous. The third example is Kshim Atsut Eskif. Kshim Atsut Eskif. Eskif is the culture-specific item that we have here. Eskif stands for harira, while it is actually translated as shorba or soup. So this is also not a decent translation. For the fourth and final example is Sistram el-Muggar. The culture-specific item that we have here is al-Muggar. Al-Muggar translates in Arabic as al-Musam, but it is translated as suq, which is very far from the contextual meaning that we have here. It should be translated simply as festival, so we can have the right meaning and also preserve the culture. Now I will talk about translating Amazigh folktales and their important role in highlighting the Amazigh culture. So before being just like the audiovisual products such as films, and as we have seen in Bab Ali, for example, or other documentaries in Amazigh, translating oral tradition, especially folktales, play an important role in highlighting the Amazigh culture. Before being documented in writing or recorded, folktales are passed on by the word of mouth, and they consist of legends, fables, jokes, tall stories, and fairy tales. While translating Amazigh folktales, we can highlight the Amazigh customs, traditions, and values. We can also shed light on the literary characteristics of Amazigh oral tradition and protect the Amazigh orality from death with the death of the storytellers. The relationship between translation and folktales is a very intimate and intricate one because before actually translated, before thoughts can come to life, they were just thoughts, and then we transmit them into words. So folktales can survive through transmission, recording, and writing, which are all acts of translation that depend on a process of translation across language and other communication media. Speaking of women as guardians of Amazigh culture, we cannot mention Moroccan orality without mentioning Professor Fatima Sadiqi, whose seminal works have been of great help for me as a researcher, and it is a great pleasure and honor to have her with us today. So in this quote, Fatima Sadiqi says, oral literature falls outside the official literature in Morocco, and it is both more complex and accessible than it. This literature is in most cases produced by poor illiterate men and women who do not have official voices. So folktales are mainly produced by underprivileged men and women with unheard voices. This oral form of literature is excluded from the official literature in Morocco, and it is marginalized because it does not go along with the needs, with the modern needs of Moroccan society, which relies on written forms of literature instead of oral lines, as Professor Fatima Sadiq confirmed. Orality, this orality and other oral expressions are used to express their inner selves. And this, in this case, Mark Edward Leach echoes Professor Fatima Sadiqi's statement, pointing out that folklore, of which folktales take part, is the accumulated knowledge of homogeneous and sophisticated people. Consequently, oral literature is perceived as exotic and less valuable compared to written literature. The last point that I will be tackling in this presentation is the ethical translation approach, the cultural visibility, which I'm suggesting to adopt while translating Amazigh culture. So Lawrence Venuti, in his book, The Translator's Invisibility, announces the idea of fluency, stating that its consideration as the ultimate stamp of approval in translation is problematic. Ethical translation approach entails demonstrating respect for the cultural and contextual peculiarities of the source text rather than adopting a fluent model of translation that leads to eradicating the essence of the text to be translated. Often translations are only considered fluent if they relate to the target language's cultural specificities. That is, if the translator has both translated and domesticated the text. So translations containing elements of a source language or culture, that is, allusions to the origins of the text, are often considered foreignizing and quite simply not fluent. And this is impacted by the British and American culture and American cultures which adopt a fluent strategy in order to guarantee that the target reader or the target audience has a smooth experience while watching or reading the translated text. But Venuti expresses is against the idea of, and I'm against this as well, because fluent translation masquerades as a true semantic equivalence when it in fact ascribes the foreign text with a partial interpretation, partial to English language values, reducing, if not simply excluding, the very differences that translation is called on to convey. So foreignization for Venuti is an ethical strategy, and I quote, "The terms domestication and foreignization indicate fundamentally ethical attitudes towards a foreign text and culture, ethical effects produced by the choice of a text for translation and by the strategy devised to translate it. Also, for foreignization is in English. Adopting the foreignizing strategy in English can be a form of resistance against ethnocentrism and racism, cultural narcissism and imperialism. And to conclude, domestication, as we have seen in Babali, is considered as a deforming factor, and foreignization is as a resistant act that must be adopted by translators to maintain the cultural and other extra-textual factors of the source text, because the fluent tendencies or the fluent strategies of translation lead to assimilation, naturalness, and finally eradicating the cultural differences and also the meaning. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sara. And I'd like to thank all the panelists. We'll now open the floor for some Q&A for we'll do our best for about 7 minutes or so before we move to our talented artists to enjoy some rhythms from the High Atlas. So please, if you have any questions, write them down, or if you'd like to unmute yourself, and please ask a question briefly. And to let us know, introduce yourself in a few words, your name and where you're from and your affiliation, and then to whom do you direct your question? Thank you. For now, I'll start with a question that was written in the chat by Adina Friedman, and her question is to Professor Sadiqi. Does every letter in Tifinagh represent something on its own, such as originally in Canaanite, Hebrew, Aramaic alphabets? For now, we have a question also to Sara. What are some alternative translations that you propose? From Bushra Larsais.
Thank you very much, Bushra, for your question. I don't know if you're talking in general or the examples that I provided from Babali, but I already answered this question in the last section. The translation approach that I suggest to preserve the source text or the original text is the ethical approach of translation, or the cultural approach of translation, through which we take into account the cultural peculiarities of the source text, taking into account history and other differences between the source and the target text. For example, in the culture-specific items that I demonstrated in the beginning of the presentation, ighodan or ighodan, ibrin, harira, these are all culturally bound words that actually exist in other languages. So domestication is not an ethical approach, and it should be avoided if we are dealing with the different kinds of text, especially when we're dealing with the Amazigh culture. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, thank you, Sara. Well, since we don't have more questions, Professor Fatima, would you like to? Yes.
Yeah, I am not sure I heard all the question the question in its entirety, but letters, what do they represent? They represent sounds, but not any sound. Sounds that can change the meaning of words, for example. So each language has like an X number of consonants and vowels that are considered important. And there is a universal process which linguists use to make these sounds, to encode them. For example, if a sound can change the meaning of words, if you say, for example, table and cable, the ta becomes important in English and the ka becomes important. That's the same thing in Tifinagh. There are 33 sounds encoded in the latest version of Tifinagh, including consonants and vowels, 33.
Okay, so in Hebrew, for example, ancient Hebrew and the languages it came from, before the, say, the letter bet, ba, it represented bait. It represented a picture of a house before, and that's connected to the sound. That's what I meant. If there's something in the picture that then.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Yes, that will really strengthen my argument. But I have not found that. What I am. This is part of a project of a book, And you know, this kind of writing is not easy. I have to go back to archaeology and history. And Hebrew, I heard this, but I didn't research it, that this exists in Hebrew, the transition from, that's really good. But I wanted to really focus on weaving in order not to get distracted with it. But your point is taken. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I give now the floor to Professor Afaf Hamzawi to ask her question. Please unmute yourself.
Professor Hamzawi, Professor of Cultural Studies, Ibn Zohri University, Faculty of Letters and Human Sciences of Agadir, Ibn Zohri University. So in 2000, first of all, I want to thank you all for this event and happy Amazigh year. Unfortunately, though, I have Amazigh origins. I don't speak Amazigh. It's the mistake from my parents. I do blame them all the time since I'm working in the region that is 90% Amazigh in Agadir. So I feel the difficulties to express myself many times. I want to thank Dr. Sadiqi, His Excellency Mr. Azoulay, and the other professors who participated in this event. In 2002, when I was a student in cultural studies in Fez, I wrote a paper about signs in Moroccan carpet, Islamic, Jewish, all Moroccan carpets from north to south. But I thank Dr. Sadiqi because she clarifies something for me, because I talked about Tifinagh letters without highlighting their importance in these in the carpets. My question is, are Tifinagh letters are also used in Moroccan jewelry, especially silver jewelry? And is there any difference between Jewish motifs and Islamic motifs in the silver jewelry in Morocco, since are they mostly used by the Amazigh women?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. And yes, that's another very important question that I have not gone into, I must admit, in detail. But I know that, for example, in oral texts that were mentioned by my good friend Mounia, when I was doing the oral texts, it was very important for me to distinguish between the Amazigh text, oral text, and the Jewish Moroccan text. There was some kind of difference. Now, jewelry, because you see, orality is different from for jewelry. I am sure there are differences, because there are differences in architecture, and jewelry is also related to that. So the forms change, but in the Amazigh like transition from I would say, because now I have been talking about this for a while now. Now it seems that that weaving is the mother of the science, that's the very first thing, but no one really went into that. Now jewelry, tattooing, they came later. And I think that while weaving is more, I would say, the core of what I am saying, but jewelry and jewelry especially changes from region to region. So I guess there must be a difference between a Jewish and Amazigh way of doing it. I'm thinking of the Najm al-Sudasiya, for example, the star, the Jewish star, you would find more there. And I saw it in some of in Fez, as you know, there is a museum of Jewish jewelry, like a corner of it, which really shows that it's different. Other than that, I cannot really answer with certainty. Yeah,
thank you.
Your question.
Thank you so much.
So there must be,
Sadiqi,
that's another window, like the previous one, which is important, and I have taken note of that. Thank you very much for both.
Great, thank you so much for your question. Well, for your answer as well. And Kautar, please, very, very briefly, if you can ask your question, and we'll end with that before moving to the artistic part. Please bear with us. This is wonderful, and it's very enriching discussion, but unfortunately we need to move on. Thank you, Kautar, for keeping your question brief. Thank you.
All right, this is a question. Hello, everybody. My name is Kautar. I am Amazigh. I live in Israel, Palestine, married to a Palestinian, and get complicated in my daily life. And this is a question from Dr. Mounia. I believe we are from the same generation, and from what I hear and what I read, you are amazing. But as a human being, as a woman today, how do you, I don't know if you have children, but how do you integrate your indigeneity and your Amazighity in your daily life? And how do you transmit to the next generation, knowing that, for example, I don't speak Tashlahit anymore since my grandma passed away in 2008. And the other question is, I'm very happy that we go back to the prehistorical and going back into really like deeply in history, but what is our role today as Amazigh women in a very complicated geopolitical context? So I would like to hear from you, Mounia, if possible. Thank you. I was short enough, right, Yona?
Barakallah.
Well, Tanmir Kautar the question, and nice to meet you. I think your second question is a bigger question that I would like to have a panel on later so that we can discuss the women's role in like the complicated geopolitical issues happening in the world. But concerning your first question, I would say that for me, going abroad to the United States made me more connected to my indigeneity. It's like this idea of distance made the heart thrive for that connection. I was lucky enough that my mother spoke to us in the house in Tamazight, but as you know, as you said, we are from the same generation. We didn't study Tamazight in school, and Arabic and French were the dominant languages, and then English came later. So what I did is I started learning how to write Tifinagh. Now, when you go to YouTube, you find so many great Amazigh YouTubers doing so many tutorials in different dialects and language varieties. So I self-taught, and then whenever I would go to Morocco, I would get in touch with the PhD and master students who are doing their studies in Tamazight, and I would sit with them in a coffee shop, and we would just talk and speak. And especially that I wanted the cultural, the education, I wanted the terms, the terms, the technical terms. Currently in Princeton, I am teaching a course called Amazigh Indigenous North Africa and Amazigh Communities. So we do land acknowledgement. We do land acknowledgement of the Amazigh every single time we enter. So that's also a way for me to keep that indigeneity present in my work. And I do not have children of my own, but what I like to do is work with a lot of women in Morocco and in Tamzgha in general, who are doing a lot of work to keep a lot of young boys and girls in school. So we are trying to make sure that we are participating in a lot of outreach activities. We are doing a lot of workshops so that women and girls are aware of the rights that they have to education and the fact that they have choices. And marriage is not, if you want to get married, good, but marriage is not the only option you have in the rural area. So these are a lot of ways. And also activities like this that are organized like this are very important for us as members of the diaspora, Amazigh, and allies to the Amazigh as well, to be able to connect with each other. So I hope I answered a little bit of your question, but we can chat later and have coffee.
Thank you so much. I see that Mr. André Azoulay also has a remark or a question, please.
Yes, to be very short. I mean, I learned a lot, during this hour, but may I ask if, what we heard is very territoriality. It's in our side of the world. If we cross the borders, if we cross the Mediterranean, is there any sign or any link of, regarding the alphabet, the art, all what we heard with other civilization far away? because there is a literature regarding the Amazigh civilization and the Western world. Did we find something on the alphabet or art or what was identified at that time?
Professor Sadiqi, I see that you're speaking.
I was
Please
saying,
unmute
can I address André's question?
Please.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
ask for Zakia and Nabil to be patient with us.
And I will be very, very brief. But I'm sure this is another thing that we need to discuss over coffee. Oh yes, Brett and Fentress did go into the relationship between many of the letters that exist in Tifinagh and other cultures. Yeah, and they did very eloquently underline the fact that because this is an old civilization that existed well before the modern times, and he found that there are links there. But you take me back to the first question I left open. Why is it that with the Hebrew and Arabic systems, there is no allusion to that? Is it because it was too strong? Because no religion was behind it? Those are big questions. Yeah, because Amazigh is not backed by a strong religion like Hebrew and Arabic, you know that. And it's more of a secular language than anything else, but it is old. It is at the origin of many, like all the alphabets that deal with images. So your question is, yes, that there is a literature on that. And because this, especially if you look not at the Mediterranean, but you move a little bit to the Sahara, Sahara, Egypt, all the places in Egypt, Aswan and all that is Amazigh.
Even the Atlantic, I mean.
Yeah. If you go back to
Exactly.
These are all amazing questions. And as you said, Professor Sadiqi, big questions that will certainly inspire us for the next year's theme. I'm sure maybe we'll tackle one of the suggested topics and questions. Well, this is time to thank you all for joining us today for the 4th edition of the Yennayer celebration, organized by the Chaim Herzog Center for Middle East and Diplomacy of Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. Thank you to His Excellency Mr. André Azoulay and to Dr. Orit Ouaknine-Yekutieli. Special thank you to the panelists who made of this event an educational and insightful experience, Professor Fatima Sadiqi, Dr. Mounia Mnouer, and Ms. Sara Boulhaoua. On behalf of the organizing team, it was an honor to make this event happen for the 4th year consecutively. Assugaz, Amggaz, and thank you. And now, before we move to the artistic part, Adi here with me. We're live in Fez, by the way.
Yes, we are both in the same place. I just wanted to say that it was a fascinating event, and each year it become more and more exciting to create and to make. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and for your time and your curiosity and knowledge.
Indeed, thank you. And please stay with us.
Can I ask you all to join us with a great thank to Yona and Adi for this amazing event? And
thank you so
great.
much.
Thank you so much.
We've done that with so much passion and love and curiosity, and we take the tips by Mounia to learn Amazigh, because both Adi and I are really curious about, not curious, but we want to learn the Amazigh language, one of the dialects, because it's not one homogeneous language, of course. Well, now allow me to welcome you to the artistic part of the evening, and I introduce our amazing artists, Zakia Khabu and Nabil Baja, who will introduce Youssef. Zakia Khabu is a teacher of the Amazigh language in Fez and is doing a master in training and innovation in Amazigh didactics at Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah University in Fez. There's no doubt that Zakia's academic journey has influenced her artistic one, and I remind you again that these are paintings made by Zakia. She is a painter, and her paintings are inspired by Amazigh women. Besides, she does covers of ancient Amazigh songs, such as by an artist such as Khadawaki, Mohammed Maghni, Mustafa Al-Akri, Mohammed Darwisha, and others. that, of course, we'll get to hear some of today. And together with Zakia, there is Nabil Baja, who is an Amazigh Moroccan artist born in Midelt, Tunfit. Tunfit is a small artistic town in the High Atlas near Midelt. And Nabil actually started his music journey and career as an Amazigh singer in 2018 with a unique style that we'll get to enjoy this evening. Some of their hits that I personally love so much, حولت غفي وتيري سات أشباس الدونيتا أنكينا ثايا الدونيت and إمتاون. I wish to add, as a big fan of Zakia and Nabil, that their music clips have been watched by millions of people on YouTube and have transcended the borders of Tamazgha. Please, Zakia.
Thank you.
وقدم لنا حتى سي يوسف معكم.
كتسمعوني؟ كتسمعونا دابا مزيان؟
مزيان.
واخا نهضر بالدارجه واقيلا لا ولا
انت هضر بالدارجه انا نترجم في الشات.
Okay.
I will translate Nabil to English. He will speak in Darija with a mixture of maybe Amazigh. I will translate the Darija part to English in the chat box.
Okay, Azoul, السلام عليكم. نتمنى كلكم ان شاء الله تكونوا بخير وعلى خير وحنا فرحانين بزاف حيت حنا معكم اليوم وسورتو بالوجود ديال السيد اندري ازولاي. حنا فرحانين بزاف وكنشكروكم كاملين وكنشكروا السي يونا على الانفيتاسيون ديالو اللي زعما ما ايزيتيناش باش نجيو نحضروا معكم. ومعايا زكيه خبو الفنانه زكيه خبو والفنان يوسف ايت الحاج.
تنميرشيا يونا مس يونا دمسا عايداخ وقراوات دسفوقلو يد نيخنوس قوسا مزيغ نيغ يدي الناير أرسني مرخشيا نيسل مادني حضرنا كيدنا مسيو أندري أزولاي أرسيتي مغي يمزيغ نومضا الأك أسغاس أمينو سلهنا دشيان تايري دلمان تنمير مرتياض.
هذا رئيس.
شكرا على هذه الاستضافه هذه وكنتمنى ان شاء الله نكونوا عند حسن الظن واستمتعنا عن طريق الكلمات اللي قالوا الناس كاملين هنايا. استفدنا معكم بزاف وشكرا لكم. تنميرت
دغدا كنا نغنج حولة غيفي. نبدا.
الصوت مسموع؟
مسموع مزيان. وشنو هذاك الانسترومون اللي كتضربوا اللي ما تعرفش؟
نعم؟
شنو هذاك الانسترومون اللي غادي تلعبوا اللي ما كيعرفش؟
هذا هذه واحد الآلة مغربية 100% أطلسية اللي هي آلة لوتار. آلة لوتار. واحد من درويشه الله يرحمه كان معروف بها وهو اللي طورها وعطاها واحد البعد فني اخر. يلا سير. Thank you. يونا
نعم
نديروا لا شونسون ثانيه ولا يعني نخليكم عاوتاني
لا احنا معكم دابا
اوكي
It's your time.
تبارك عليكم.
الله يحفظكم. شكرا. تلميذ.
شوف نبيل
وي.
واقفين نديروا حيدوس.
حيدوس.
غير زعما احنا بثلاثه هنايا نلقيو الكتاف واغلي معنا راه بالقراقه.
شكرا لكم كاملين. شكرا بزاف. تنميرت. بلاتي انا صافي. الصوت واقيلا ما كيتسمعش. نو
تيتسمع يونا غادي ولا نسمع شغله كشي بالقرقبات نتاع اغليكا.
واقع نعطيهم مثالي واحد.
اوكي
יכול להיות לא בסינק, זה יכול להיות לא בסינק. הלוואי.
Thank you. شكرا.
بارك الله عليك. دابا نسمعوا شويه. قول لنا فين اللي بغاو الناس يتعرفوا عليكم يسمعوا الموسيقى ديالكم، فين نلقاوكم؟
اللي بغى يسمعنا كلنا عندنا لي بلاتفورم كاملين، يوتيوب وسبوتيفاي ديزر ايتونز، فهادشي كامل غتلقاونا. نبيل بجا، زكي خبو، يوسف عيد الحاج. ونتمنى داكشي ان شاء الله الى بحثتوا وشفتوا داكشي وعجبكم ان شاء الله. نتمنى يعجبكم ان شاء الله، نتمنى ان شاء الله يعجبكم.
هاي يوز تبارك الله عليكم.
سلمي شكرا بزاف.
تبارك الله عليكم، شكرا بزاف. شكرا لكل واحد فيكم اللي جا معنا من كل بلاصه. بروفيسور فاطمه صديقي من قطر، هي كاينه في قطر دابا. مونيا عفوا هي في برينستون. سارة ها هي ولات حدانا، ما عرفتش كي دارت لها. أوريت اللي جات معنا من بيرشيفا، مسيو أندري أزولاي من الرباط، وكل واحد فيكم من إسرائيل، من كل بلاصة. كان نهار كبير وشكرا بزاف بيان سور لي زارتيست ديالنا. نبيل برجا العزيز، زكيه خبولي. شوف احنا كان عجبنا بزاف لي طابلو ديالك، ما عرفتش واش ردهم لك ولا لا، هذه تنصبر عليها.
لا ديالك.
ويوسف شكرا بزاف لكم. احنا دابا غادي نطلق كاع لقيت كاملين
غنسالي ليفينمون، ولكن تقدروا تبقوا هنا وغنهضروا اللي بغيتكم. احنا فرحانين بزاف وشكرا بزاف.